Hare Krishna everyone, welcome to Wisdom, Nectar from Senior Devotee, experiencing Srila Prabhupada. So purpose of this wisdom is keeping all ideas and advice from senior devotee for next generation. And please accept my humble obeisance to all of you. It is our pleasure and happy then joined everyone. And today we have special guest, His Grace Yoginanda Prabhu. So Yaginath Prabhu is from Sharnagati, Canada, a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada. We have little this, so please accept my humble obeisance, Prabhu, for your kind presentation present here. And I invite Dipeshwari Radhika Devi Dasi to read his short biography.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavot Pranam.
Dandavat.
Please accept my humble obeisance to you. And where is Mataji?
She's here.
Also, Mataji can see your face.
Dark, you want to say
Please
hi?
come.
She'll come.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisance to you.
Please accept my. It's so nice to see you.
Very nice to see you too. And how are you, Prabhu and Mataji?
By Krishna's,
By Krishna's grace.
Yes, that's great. Very nice.
Hare Krishna.
So, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. It is my pleasure and honor to reading His Grace Yaginath Prabhu's biography. His Grace Yaginath Dasha is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of ISKCON. He joined the ISKCON temple in Seattle, USA at the beginning of 1975. Initiated in October 1975 and traded to Vancouver, Canada in 1976. Served at the Vancouver temple in a variety of services, primarily as a Sankirtan devotee, which meant collecting money and distributing books. Served as co-president of Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, 1983 to 1984, and Vancouver Temple President in 1985 to 1986, and then moved to Sharanagati in 1987, and have been there ever since, other than he helped Pujari at the Calgary Temple at 1993 to 1994. Wow. Currently directing operations for the Ohimsa Goshala project in Sharanagati village and living with his wonderful wife, Her Grace Udarakriti Dashi. Thank you so much and stay tuned in Sweet Wisdom Talk. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Dipeshwari Radhika Devi Dasi. So we are starting. So before I going a little bit talk about the Srila Prabhupada mission, Srila Prabhupada want everybody join the ISKCON and glories to Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada, and now I am inviting to say something about Srila Prabhupada and his joint. Then he experienced the topic, the time for the renunciation. And finally, we have question and answer. So please start.
Let's speak.
Yes, please.
Okay, so as mentioned, I moved into a temple in 1975. So by that time, Srila Prabhupada's mission in North America was, 10 years old, which means that he was already like built up very large. I mean, small by today's standards. Large meant 3,000 devotees in the whole planet. But still, Prabhupada was already a celebrity, a spiritual celebrity. And so when a new person came, it's not as if you got to like go meet Prabhupada and hang out with Prabhupada. So, I'm one of the devotees. I can prove I'm a disciple, though, because there is a book of letters where Prabhupada sends a letter and says, I accept so and so as my disciple, and this is his new name. So, according to that book, I am a disciple. But it's important to see that, there were devotees or disciples that weren't famous, that weren't big devotees, but at the same time had enough, Prabhupada's presence had enough impact to make them change their lives once and for all, forever. So anyway, let me talk a little bit about when I did see Srila Prabhupada, because it's very fun to talk about that. So it was, as mentioned, I joined in Seattle and was later traded to Vancouver. So that's how it was back then. I just talked to another devotee, and he said that he wasn't traded, he was sold. He was sold from Toronto to Los Angeles. So the junior devotees were like that, trading, buying and selling people, spiritual slaves. But so I was in the Seattle temple, and the news was that Prabhupada was coming to Berkeley, California, during the summer 1975. So this was my chance. Now, in my case, my introduction to Krishna consciousness was I read a Bhagavad Gita as it is. And so and it changed me by reading that to learn about Krishna. So see, my relationship was I'm connecting with something divine. I'm connecting with God. And now I understand that person is Krishna. So when I moved into the temple, I didn't even really want to move into a temple, but that was the only choice then. That's when I found out about Prabhupada, because everybody there, they talked mostly about Prabhupada. I came because of Krishna, but they talked about Prabhupada. So I had to make that connection between Krishna and Guru, which shows you how when Prabhupada spoke of Krishna, it was all about Krishna. It wasn't about himself. So, but anyway, so here it was, the Guru was coming. So I had no idea what to expect. I thought my Guru, he will recognize me, his long lost student or something mystical. But anyway, so we, about 5 or 6 of us, we got in a van to drive from Seattle to Berkeley. And we would stop along the way. We had no money, of course. So we'd stop along the way. And if we needed gas, we'd get out and we'd sell a few books, try and make money, and then we'd have enough gas. Or for food, So that's how we got there. But anyway, we got there. And it was a couple days before Prabhupada's arrival. And so we were engaged. Now, keep in mind that in Seattle, the most devotees I had ever seen at one time was 10 or 12. Right? It's a small temple, a very intimate service. So and suddenly in Berkeley, there were devotees coming from all over North America. As you can imagine, Prabhupada's coming. So the entire California population of devotees, what to speak of all the other Western parts of the United States and even the Eastern, were coming because Prabhupada was there, which of course we would do now. If we heard Prabhupada's coming to Vancouver, who wouldn't come? So suddenly I'm seeing more than 10. I'm seeing 20, 40. They're arriving in the same kind of van that we drove down, 5 or 6 at a time. So the Berkeley Temple had like 100 vehicles, more than that, in their parking lot and on the streets everywhere. And the thing is that it was kind of competitive. Keep in mind that every single devotee there was fairly new. Nobody was like older than 25. The old devotees was 30. That was Jayananda, the oldest guy there. And we thought, boy, he's like a man. Um, so it was very competitive because you're young and you're trying to show that, well, I'm more spiritually advanced than you are. I've been in the movement for 8 months and you've only been for 4 months. Things like that. But that was fine. I could understand. So I was still bhakta. And so I was given, oh, you're just bhakta, you go do this, go do that. So finally, on the day that Prabhupada arrived, everybody left the temple to go to the airport. Huge thing. And then they said, oh, but you, bhakta, Tim, you stay back. You stay back, make sure this door area is clean. Well, okay, service to Krishna, that's fine. I didn't have a spiritual name. So I did. I'd stay back in the temple. And then after 1 hour or so, a limousine arrived. And I looked out, and it was by itself. And then somebody jumped out of the limousine and opened the door. And then Prabhupada stepped out. So there, it was just like, whoa. So I thought, well, I'll open the door. So I opened the door to the temple. It was like an old church, so there's double doors. But then within seconds after Prabhupada's limousine, all of a sudden there was this thousands of cars arriving at the same time, screeching all, everybody jumping out, running. So Prabhupada is walking towards the front door of the temple. And suddenly he's being surrounded by this ocean of devotees shouting and dancing and chanting. But amidst all that kind of like chaos, I saw that Prabhupada was so composed, so different than anybody. So I opened the door, looked at Prabhupada, and he just kind of looked at me. And then he kept walking. So naturally, a person's going to say, okay, big deal. It's like, you think you saw a rock star or you saw an important politician or something. But the experience was different, and how can a person explain what their own subjective experiences? I saw this person and I thought this person is like something I've never seen before. But still, what can I say? That's what I thought. That's what I felt. That because I didn't know what to expect, that everybody's talking, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. I don't know what to expect. And I don't want to just pretend that, oh, he's great because they say he's great. But then, you see this person, so you can describe it as a transcendent personality. Somebody who actually is carrying God. But nonetheless, so I opened the door and Prabhupada walked close, and it's suddenly this whole throng of devotees, and I'm pushed to the back, and okay, that's it. That's my moment. That's not Prabhupada. So the next day or the day after, there was a television crew coming to the temple to interview Prabhupada. So the way it was is that all of us, we were the brahmacharis, everybody was fully shaved. Prabhupada's there, you wanted to make sure your head is like shaved, shiny clean. And there was this cheap kind of shaving cream that everybody bought because it used so much of it. And it was like this lime coconut shaving cream. There was like cases of it. So everybody was all freshly shaved, and the whole temple room smelled like this, lime coconut shaving cream. And because there were so many, we were just packed, literally packed one way or another. And as the bhakta, You just kept getting pushed further and further to the back of the temple room. It was a large temple room, but still it was jammed. So practically all you could see in the front was these sticks, the sannyasis holding sticks. So you see the backs of all these freshly shaved heads, and then you see all these sticks, and then there's the television lights, and then far, far away you see Prabhupada. So here's the thing is that, I'm going through this tremendous change in life. I drop out of school, I tell my family I found God, this is all different, this is what I am. And yet in this huge assembly, I'm like nobody. I'm like, my back against the wall. And so I'm there wondering, well, what is my connection here? That they're telling me this is my guru. So then the television interview begins, and they're asking different questions, and then I'm thinking like this: that how do I know Prabhupada? And then they ask Prabhupada, what will happen when you die? And that's when Prabhupada said, and it just like boomed out over the loudspeakers, I will never die. I will live forever in my books. And then that's when I realized that, well, that was always my connection from the beginning. My connection wasn't that, I'm doing this for Prabhupada and I'm his personal servant. But it doesn't mean that, like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he's equal to everybody. Right? Suridam sarvadehinam. He's a friend of everybody, not just some. It's not as if somebody's God's child and somebody's not. So I realized, well, that has always been my connection, is through his books. And he's telling me, and it's echoing right here in this temple room, that's your connection. So in that sense, it's important to know that there are disciples of Prabhupada who, in fact, probably, 80%, that their real connection with Prabhupada wasn't that I cooked for him or brought him this, even though, like for one day they gave me the service, Prabhupada goes on his morning walk, everybody goes, Bhakta Tim, you stay back and clean the room. So I cleaned the room and I found in Prabhupada's garbage, there was one stick from a eucalyptus tree. It was like a California neem tree. So Prabhupada used for cleaning his teeth. And there was also a stem of a fig that Prabhupada had eaten, threw the stem away. So I was just thrilled. So I I ate the stem, the fig stem, just ate it right on the spot. And I took the twig, the neem twig or the eucalyptus twig, and I put that in my bead bag. And I had it for so long, I don't even know where it finally disappeared. But anyway, so I guess the only point I'm really making is that a disciple of Prabhupada means that somebody who chooses to accept Prabhupada's teachings. It doesn't mean that I did this or did that for Prabhupada. And yet, still, when you make a decision, how am I going to conduct my daily affairs? How am I going to orient my life? It's based on something that Prabhupada said. If he is the guru, then what he says has to be like the guiding principle of your life. And so therefore, a person can claim I am legitimate disciple because I've taken those instructions and I've made that the foundation of my whole life. Anyway, so that's my experience of Prabhupada. That's my memory of Prabhupada. I've associated and talked to so many God brothers, God sisters that have had a little more extensive experience and association with Prabhupada, but it boils down to the same thing. A disciple means just following, accepting and following. So that's what I try to do. Now, let us talk on the top. Is that okay?
Yes, that's wonderful.
Okay. So I have a routine personally that in the morning I read Srimad Bhagavatam, in the evening I read Krishna book. So a topic I should just speak about the section of Bhagavatam that I happen to be reading. So therefore the title of the topic about renunciation is because I'm reading of Vidura's instructions to Dhritarashtra. And you could categorize that or summarize that as he's speaking of renunciation to his elder brother. Now, Vidura, you know that such an interesting personality. He's actually Yamaraj, right? Yamaraj, who was cursed, take birth as a Shudra. But it's not an ordinary Shudra. It's a Shudra who gets to see Krishna. So that's pretty good birth. Just like the Yamalarjun trees, they're cursed. So what's the curse? Oh, you get to see Krishna. Well, that's not much of a curse. I'll stand as a tree if I get to see Krishna. No problem. Anyway, so Vidura, he was insulted by Duryodhana. Actually insulted. And as you know, if you are insulted, it kind of hurts the heart. So he thought, okay, this is a good chance then. Let me leave. I'll leave home. And I'll pursue my inner interest, which is God, Krishna. So he met Maitreya and took so many instructions from Maitreya. And of course, he was already enlightened, but we can say now he is enlightened. So when he returned to Hastinapur, this was after the Great War, the Great Battle of Kurukshetra. He wasn't going home because, oh, I miss home. I want to see my family, my home. And Prabhupada explains that, so Vidura went there, he was a family member returning home after a long time. And so he was received with so much love by everybody in the palace, all of his relatives. But his interest in going there wasn't for that. And Prabhupada explains that this is why a Brahmana or a saint goes anywhere for one purpose only, is to share Krishna consciousness. He has no other interest. He has no other business. He doesn't talk about anything else because he understands what is life about. He understands the end game, what we're supposed to be doing with our precious time. And so Vidura is going there only to enlighten. And then Prabhupada raises a question. He says, well, a person may ask, why don't those householders go to the saintly person? Why does the saintly person have to come to their house? And he just gives the explanation. He says, because the grihastas are so poor-hearted. The poor-hearted means I'm so engrossed in things that don't really matter, just filling up my time with, career and family, that I haven't got time to go visit the saintly persons. So the saintly person knowing that I know you're lost, I'll come to you. So that's what he did. Vidura came there. Now, for the most part, the people he was speaking to were already Nitya Siddhas, right? They were participants in Krishna's Leela. His primary interest in going there was his elder brother Dhritarashtra. And his instructions to Dhritarashtra were very blunt. He said, get out, leave, you're too old. What are you waiting for? Krishna is the manufacturer of the universe, right? So Krishna says, when built into this universe, I have a recommended social structure that's going to benefit everybody. If you follow this, anybody who follows this is benefit. And this is what I recommend for human society. So he talks about Chaturvarnya Maya Shrishtam, these varnas and ashramas. Organize society like this. Organize your life like this. Now, in our experience in modern world, this seems like so antiquated, so irrelevant. If you're talking about brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas, sudras, what to speak of sannyas, brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and yet it's God's system, so it can't be irrelevant. It must mean something. Now, if we're conducting our affairs as a society or as an individual without reference to this, then it could be said that we're really lost. For example, Trudeau doesn't say, well, I think that according to Shastra, we should be doing this. There's no reference at all. No reference. But looking at that divine system, we see that the purpose of it is Krishna wants us to grow spiritually, right? That's his interest in us and in our involvement in this world, that we grow spiritually. And it seems that because that system that he organized, brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, when you look at it, you see that, well, most of these ashrams are ashrams of some level of renunciation. Now, this point becomes is a point of confusion even to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, because he asks Krishna that on the one hand you're asking me to renounce this world, and on the other hand you're asking me to engage in this fight. So which is better, working or renouncing? Make it clear. And then Krishna, when Krishna speaks of renunciation, he uses two words in Bhagavad Gita. He speaks of tyaga and he speaks of sannyas. And they're both some element of renunciation, right? But the tyaga, the giving up, is subordinate to the other notion of renunciation, sannyas, which means like committing to, surrendering to, which he uses the term sannyas in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, referring to this, that surrendering to him, that is sannyas. So surrendering to Krishna is different than this notion of tyaga, which means just giving up. Because as Vidura told Dhritarashtra, if you don't give it up now, and he was talking about his various attachments, he told him, you should be embarrassed. You're this old and you're still trying to enjoy the comforts of this life. You haven't recognized yet that this world isn't that comfortable. For you, the renunciation is get out and walk north and keep walking. Don't stop. So that kind of instruction seems ridiculous and impractical now. Get out and keep walking north, go past Fort McMurray and keep going. It would seem irrelevant, but his point was that time is not waiting, and Prabhupada emphasizes this point, that time does not wait, that there are built-in factors of existence as we know it, and some of those built-in factors you cannot do anything about, and those built-in factors are birth, old age, disease. You can't stop it. You see, the world is going nuts trying to stop disease, and you can't stop it. Do what you want. Wear 100 masks. You can't stop disease. You can't stop death. So Vidura is telling him that, what are you waiting for? There's one instruction that Prabhupada gives that at age 50, you should take sannyas. What? But 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 um, but that's a good. That sannyas is the other notion of sannyas that Krishna's talking about, where you just give everything. Um, in that sense, you don't have to wait till you're 50. Um, you can be 20 years old with a freshly shaved head and decide that I'm giving to Krishna everything. I don't know what it's going to be, even, but every day and every minute is going to be somehow for Krishna's pleasure. So in Dhritarashtra's case, it had to be like severe. Just get out of this palace. You're embarrassing yourself. Because he had waited so long. So in our case, we see that we can talk about renunciation in two different ways, because what does happen is that you do get old. See, so internally there's a kind of renunciation, and externally there's a kind of renunciation. So the mindset is, okay, this world belongs to God. Actually, everything is God's. He says it. He says, every loka is mine. So it's his property. It belongs to him. So that's one thing. For example, just the other day we did what we call a ground laying ceremony for building a new goshala, right? We want to build a new cowshed. So we do this groundbreaking ceremony. So I had to look up Vastu and study some Vastu and see, well, what is this groundbreaking all about? And part of the ceremony is to recognize that where I'm going to build this cowshed, previously this land has been used for different things. And over the millennia, thousands of years ago, other people were here on this land. So I only temporarily am using this land for this purpose, and I'm asking permission from God, from the ancestors, from whoever, that now we just want to do this with this land. So it does belong to God. That's one level of renunciation. The other is something happens that, like Prabhupada says, that the aging process, feeling oneself to be getting older, and that starts right away. When you're 20, you suddenly realize, oh, I'm not 16 anymore. And when you're 30, you realize, oh, I'm not 20 anymore. And then you're 50 and you realize I'm not 30. And then you're 70 and you realize I'm not 50. So Prabhupada says that this aging, at a certain point, it becomes significant because things start to break down a little bit. The body actually does break down. Just like a car breaks down, you can fix it. The body breaks down, you can fix it a little bit. But it's a losing battle. In other words, there's this notion that some people say you can just keep fixing the body and you'll be eternal. But we know what Lord Brahma told the Hiranyakashipu, that, wait a minute, that's the one thing I can't give. I can help you in so many ways, but I cannot make you immortal. So the body is like that. It is a time bomb. It's going to go off. So there is that warning that in that sense, a person has to renounce very much internally, that I do give it up. Normally, our concept of renunciation means, because the world belongs to God, everything in this world that's within my circle, I use for the pleasure of God, somehow to serve him. I better be able to connect things, even if it's a little indirectly. I should be able to connect anything. The picture on my wall or the lamp, I better be able to connect it. Well, I use that lamp to make light so I can read the Bhagavad Gita at night. Something. So everything is connected to Krishna, and that's renunciation. That's the perfection of renunciation, and that's what Krishna told Arjuna. That work is better than renunciation if the work is meant for me. I prefer that. He said, not lighting no fire. So he said work is better than renunciation. So, and the Goswamis also told us that the perfection of renunciation is not just abstaining and giving things up. It is using things for the glory of God. But at the same time, we experience that, oh, I'm going to have to give it up by the force of time. This very body. And it's not only the body, because connected to the body is the wife, is the children, it's the bank balance, it's the mortgage, it's the house, it's a car, it's the prestige, it's my honor, it's my, all of that is gone forever. Such a thing, huh? You work so hard for so many years. I finally got my mortgage paid off so I can die and start over with a new mortgage. That's it. So internally, there's this, that I have to realize that this is going to die. This is going to expire. This, and I'm finished with that. And if a person has been preparing by a life of Krishna consciousness, I asked one god brother who passed away many years ago, Sridhar Swami. He came and he had his notice that the doctors had said, you've got, this stage of, what did he have? Anyway, he knew he had 1 year left, some kind of hepatitis or something. And his body was changing and it was very obvious he's going to die. So I said, is it scary? Are you worried at all, Maharaj? And he said, are you kidding? This is exciting. How many people can say that? Oh boy, I get to die. So that was his spontaneous response. He wasn't planning it. He just told me that, no, I'm kind of excited about it. So if a person is preparing and understands, the big picture, that what's really going on, that you have an opportunity to go back to Godhead. And Krishna's not just joking, he's not playing games, but it's true. Then naturally, that's very exciting news. So if a person is preparing, then it's not a big deal. And exactly the opposite, if a person hasn't prepared, it's a total shock. I have to die? And do anything to avoid it. And that's why, the fear propaganda is so effective, because people are intuitively afraid of death. So if you say that this is good, this might kill you, then they'll do anything to avoid it. Because with this intuitive fear of death. But if we're practicing renunciation from the very beginning, that everything always did belong to Krishna, everything always will belong to Krishna, then the renunciation is not a fearful thing at all. It's just what life is, because we always have been part of Krishna. We always will be a part of Krishna. There's nothing to renounce. There's only service. So that's about that. And I would like to speak a little bit about our cows, because we have a little goshala. Right now we have 6 cows. Can you see this? This is Sarabi. She's one of our cows. So you see that she has what you call, oops, I'm so bad at this. She has a hump on the back, right? So that's called Surya Ketu Nadi. These kind of cows. These are the sacred cows. Now, of course, Prabhupada, he refers now and then about cow protection. We can say that, well, this is the Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Hare Krishna movement. But nonetheless, Prabhupada does talk about cow protection as a kind of component of the Vedic culture, the spiritual culture which supports spiritual life. Our experience has been that taking care of cows, aside from just spending time with the cows and seeing that these are really interesting animals, suddenly you read the scriptures and you see that there's so much scriptural statements. There's an entire Upanishad, Garbhopanishad, which is all about cows, that they are sacred, why they're sacred, how they're sacred. and in the Mahabharata everywhere. Actually, you see, even when Krishna was almost killed by Putana, when his mother and the other ladies recovered their baby, they gave him a bath with cow urine. Right in Srimad Bhagavatam, they gave him a bath with cow urine. Then they marked his body with tilak using cow dung. And then they whisked his body with the tail of the cow. And then they sprinkled him with the dust from the cow. Now, if you did that today, what would happen? Right? You'd be reported to child services. Your baby would be taken away from you. People have lost so much idea of how beautiful the cow is, how that the cow is sacred. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, so many places, the cow is sacred. So it's interesting. Now you start spending time and thinking that all the devas are in the animal, in this body of this animal. Lakshmi is in the dung of this animal. And it's just fascinating. And what's especially interesting is all the people who come up, that they just want to offer something to the cow, a little food. They want to do a little puja, take some blessings. And so it's been a very nice opportunity for us to meet people we would never have otherwise met. And I'm talking about they're not necessarily from ISKCON. And sometimes they bring their pundits up with them. And I get to meet their pundits. And we sit down and we read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. And I show them Gaur Nitai, the Yuga Avatar. And we even chant Hare Krishna. So people that would otherwise, they go to their temple, the Lakshmi Narayan temple, or even the temple right next to the ISKCON, in Vancouver, the brand new one they built, Vishva, VHP. Their pundit from there came out. So these different pundits are coming up, doing puja for a cow, taking prasadam, chanting Hare Krishna. We had one pundit from Lakshmi Narayan temple come up. He did a long puja. This family wanted, somebody had passed away in their family. They wanted a special puja. Normally we just do the puja ourselves, go puja. But sometimes they bring their pundit. And then afterwards, he wanted to do Harinam Kirtan because he had seen the devotees doing it, but he had never done it. So we went on Naga Kirtan, just, in Sharanagati Valley on the roads, and it was blissful. So anyway, we have opportunity to preach on the basis of cow protection. And that's also a lot of fun because I'm beginning to see the potential for this now. That this is an excellent way to kind of integrate into the greater, a larger community who otherwise may not have the chance. So cows are a nice angle. Just like they say, the yoga crowd, you get the yoga crowd. Well, now we're working on the cow crowd. And they're very special people. So anyway, I'm sorry to have gone off, but that's who I am. That's what we do, and that's my understanding of Krishna. This well doesn't go very deep, or this bird doesn't fly very high, but there you have it.
Thank you so much for your nice explanation about Srila Prabhupada and your Sharanagati life. So we have now question and answer.
Okay.
The first question is, what is the most things attract you in the beginning and you joined ISKCON Hare Krishna movement?
In my case, when I read Bhagavad Gita, I opened this book. I moved into this house. I was a college student. So you rent a room as a college student, you get nothing, right? There's a mattress on the floor. There's your room. So I'm a college student. I rent this room. I go in there. There's a mattress on the floor. That's it. But next to the mattress, there's a Bhagavad Gita.
Oh.
So the person who was renting the house, the day before, he had been to the airport in Seattle. And somebody had sold him this book. He didn't really want it. He bought the book. He just threw it on the floor there in this bedroom. So I picked it up and I read it and I thought, then I closed it and I thought, it seemed like that book was talking. I must be going crazy. I don't know. Maybe I'm making this up. So the next day I opened the book again and I read something and the same experience. And this went on for a few days. And I thought, this is real. Something is here. Now, then, just a few days after that, I went to the grocery store and there's this girl outside of the grocery store and she has a big jar full of money and she asked me to put a quarter in the jar for something. And then she gave me the card, said, come to this temple. And I saw the mantra was the same from that book that I was reading, the Hare Krishna mantra. And I thought, that can't be a coincidence. But anyway, so my attraction was just these words of this book seem to be alive, that God is talking. Because you're always praying to God, let me understand, show me. And then suddenly it seemed like God was showing me. So I had to go. I just had to. So it's Super Soul is telling you, now is your time. I'm not playing games. It's your time. You can come. So I just felt that God was telling me, it's your turn. You go that way, but you can come to me if you want. So I don't know what else to say. It tells you that this is the way. And somebody else may say, okay, well, then Jesus is the way. Okay, whatever. But as far as I'm concerned, here's the real thing.
Thank you. Next question is, when you joined ISKCON, you moved to the temple or just outside that time?
Oh, you must move into the temple. There's
Okay.
no
Yeah,
choice.
but now it's different to that.
Now it's different, but then everybody was in the temple. There was a married couple with children, everybody, all in
One.
one building.
So when you joined ISKCON and moved to the temple, do you have any issue in your family part?
Yes, big issue.
How you overcome this?
Because not only was I moving into the temple, I gave away all my money and my car. I didn't know at that time, I gave it all to my friends. And then I dropped out of school. So my parents are thinking, oh, they're so proud of their son. He's in university, he's going to become this and that. So they were shocked and disappointed. They made fun of me. Even my friends made fun of me. But what can you do? I'm not trying to be difficult, but I must. You hear the call of God, you must go. So there was a lot of resistance that he's gone crazy. He's being cheated. He's brainwashed. Something is wrong. So that's also Krishna's test. But it wasn't a difficult test, actually. It wasn't difficult because I've connected with some of those friends, 40 years later, and I see that their lives are lost. I didn't miss anything.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Next question is, what is the most important things to develop the love of Krishna according to your?
Um, well, what I understood very early is that I'm not a very good singer. I really can't. I can't sing nice kirtan, and I'm not the smartest scholar, and most things I can't do very well. So I understood that. That's my karma. Okay. What can I do? What can a person do? And the one thing you can do, anybody can do, is to be sincere. That doesn't require any special abilities or talents. Anybody can be sincere. Okay, so how do I show that I'm sincere? I can chant Hare Krishna sincerely. So I know that Prabhupada said, here's your beads, here's 16 rounds. So that you can do sincerely and you don't have to be anything. So for me, that has always been the most important. And that's the most important time of my day, and it always has been. So I get up very early and try to be sincere and chant on those rounds and make a connection with the holy name. And I think uh, that really has to be at the very heart of anybody's sadhana or their approach to Krishna. Because it's easy to take prasadam and it's easy to be happy in kirtan, but it's not as easy to just by yourself quietly take Krishna's name and try to pray. So that means it's a good opportunity to show Krishna that I'm sincere. I'm serious about this. Here's my proof. I'm going to get up. Nobody's watching. Nobody cares. And I'll do it anyway.
Thank you. Next question is, there any specific service you like?
Um, um, I was president of Krishna Balaram Mandir for some time. That's when I realized I'm not a manager. But while I was there, every day they would bring prasadam to Prabhupada's personal room in Radha Damodar temple. So, and there was a special bicycle, and the bicycle had a basket on the front. So you put this, looks like a wooden tiffin inside the basket and ride the bicycle 20 minutes to the Radha Damodar temple. Then you bring it in and you would take out the food and offer to Prabhupada and sit while Prabhupada ate. So it was quite nice. So I guess my favorite service has been riding bicycle.
For Krishna and Prabhupada.
And we have now here in Chiranagiri, we have bicycle trails.
Oh,
I don't ride a bicycle anymore. But the thing is about service, it's always been the most fun. You know, from years, it's changed over so many years, it's changed. I loved raising children. That's all done. So many things that I've done in Krishna service, and whatever the service is then, that's the best service. So right now, the best service is the Goshala.
okay. Next question is, what is the most important things in Grihastha ashram to live together? Because your experience.
So say that again.
What is the most things to living together in Grihastha ashram, family life?
Oh, I see. I guess, well, all the basic things. You know, you have to respect that the other person has their own relationship with Krishna and that they belong to Krishna. So you have to recognize and appreciate that. And you have to be satisfied. Because if you're not satisfied yourself, you'll blame the other person. That's why I'm not happy. It's her fault or it's his fault. So you have to be you have to be satisfied, and you can't be satisfied if you're not trying to grow in Krishna consciousness. You won't be satisfied. But if you are satisfied, then you may help then you won't blame anybody else. So that's also important, I think. Try to figure out how to be happy.
How one can become a satisfied in the family life?
What can be what?
Satisfied himself or herself in family life, because family life has so many demanding and this that.
Well, you know, you have to remember. You just have to remember that Krishna is my friend.
Mm.
Krishna really is my friend. Krishna is on my side. And so what is there not to be happy about? But if I have to remember I'm eternal, because this world it is filled with frustration.
Mhm.
Every step, not just now and then, every step. So if I forget that I'm eternal and that Krishna is my real friend, then yeah, it's easy to become overwhelmed. And if I'm overwhelmed, that's the indication that I'm doing something wrong, unless I'm overwhelmed by Krishna's service.
Wonderful. Yeah, maybe two more questions. So there is now I'll talk about a little bit of Sharanagati. So you are Sharanagati living. How many years is this Sharanagati? And if anybody want to join the Sharanagati, and what your advice from
My advice is that's a very good decision. Um, well, understand that Prabhupada did say, I want to establish Varnashram.
there?
Um, so Varnashram means an actual village of people living a very simple life. And and if you read the description of Vrindavan as the prototype, um, the people are happy, the people are wealthy, the people are Krishna conscious. So what else do you want? Um, village life is it has a certain attraction, because, for example, when people come here from some other place, the first thing they do when they get out of their car is they lock their car. You don't have to lock your car. You don't have to lock your doors of your house. So
Wonderful.
you, so you understand that there's a certain trust, a certain freedom, a certain security that you don't get in other places. So that's one thing. But for me, it's even more exciting is to think that you develop a village based on land and cows where it actually works, that people have everything they need. People are happy with their, you've got fresh water already here. You got fresh, clean air. So you got land, you got water, you got air. Um, then you've got Krishna at the middle, and you've got some beautiful cows, and you're growing food. So it's a very attractive idea, but still it is utopian, kind of, at this point. But not really, because these things, we're working on all of these things day by day. It may take another 10 years, another 20 years, but we're working constantly on developing land, cows, self-sufficiency, a good, solid, secure, prosperous, Krishna conscious life. So that's our goal. As a matter of fact, there's two families from Calgary talking about moving here even now.
Okay, after this thing, I want to ask you this question. City and now city is so much things going on. People are not so much frustrated when they living in city. So what is the difference between living village and city? You little bit talk about. Can you talk more details? Because you also living in the Vancouver, Seattle, and now in Shawnagar. What is the difference between city, living city, and village?
Well, when I first came to Sharanagati, the one thing I didn't like is that it was so quiet.
Mm.
It's just too quiet. Um, but that was, 35 years ago or whatever. Now it's the opposite. If I go to Vancouver, it's too loud, too busy, too much energy, too many people just go. Um, so that's what you notice the most thing, that it's just quiet. There's not a bunch of noise in the background all the time. But as a devotee, any place you can serve Krishna is just fine. Right? So this is a particular type of service. But I think that this particular type of service has some rewards on the side that, for me, I find very satisfying. I love listening to the birds, the, the birds singing. It's a beautiful sound. And it echoes in the, because you're kind of the forest and they're all in their trees, and it kind of echoes a little bit. And it's just music. It's just fascinating to think. And then if the wind blows a little bit and there's different sounds, so it's hard to hear those things. The birds are in the city also, but it's hard to hear them because there's so much other noise. So it's just interesting to think, oh, Krishna's creation is so beautiful. Like there's automatic music in the morning coming from the forest. But it's a lot of work also. Like if I'm living in the city, if my house gets cold, I turn one switch and it gets warm. Here, I have to get the chainsaw, I have to cut the tree, I have to split the wood, I have to bring the wood in, I have to put it in this, I have to make a fire. So when people come here in the winter, they come in the house and they think, oh, I love the feeling. I love that warm feeling. What is that? I say, well, that's wood heat from the stove. And they think, oh, it's so nice. But what they don't see is what I had to do to make that heat. It's a lot of work. So village life is like that. But sometimes you like work together. And then it's more fun. Then it's not like work.
Thank you. So our time is going almost finished. So last question. Last
Okay.
question is, what is your advice to the new generation about Hare Krishna?
Um, my advice is make it your own. Don't be afraid to make it your own. In other words, if I hear a kirtan now by kindred spirits or some kirtan group, it is so much different than kirtan from 1970. Prabhupada never even heard this kind of kirtan. But in my heart, I'm thinking, oh, this is beautiful. This is Prabhupada, because if it's a movement for the whole world and for everybody, you have to make it your own. You know, Krishna is in your heart also. So take it, don't change anything, but make it your own. That's my advice.
Thank you so much for your wonderful sharing and explaining, advising. And it is
Thank you.
a pleasure that you are here and honor that you are here. And thank you everyone who is watching this wisdom. And Srila Prabhupada wants that everybody together. Srila Prabhupada came, purpose is, he came 1965 with 69 years.
65.
1965. He came and 69 years old.
Oh,
Almost,
to Canada, you mean?
yeah. So this means Srila Prabhupada, I talk about Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada purpose is to introduce Krishna and giving the opportunity to everyone join Krishna. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada and all glories to Srila Prabhupada disciple and devotees. So thank you so much. And we are maybe talk more about that next time.
Okay.
And we are now and we are next week also going same things. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Hare Krishna.